everybody, welcome to the Appalachian ADV Community Podcast. This is your host, Kane Wagner, owner of Appalachian ADV. Head full for all of our events and rallies and tours and riding clinics. Today, I got my buddy Trevor on the podcast. People will know who he is through the Tallboys and Trackmasters Podcast and the Fairmont dual sport riders. We'll get into all that stuff here in a little bit, but first we'll let Trevor kind of introduce himself, man. How you doing today?
Doing pretty well. I'd be better if I was behind a set of handlebars, naturally.
Yeah.
So my name's Trevor Schoonover. I've been involved with Fairmont dual sport riders since I think 2019. And of course, James and I have done the Tallboys and Trackmasters podcast for several years now. We reached episode 100 not too long ago, so that was pretty exciting.
It's nice, man. Yeah. So let's before we dive into those topics, which we definitely were going to talk a lot about those, let's let people get to know you a little bit, kind of like where you're from, where you're living at now, what kind of history you got for work, and definitely we'll start talking about some motorcycles, man.
So I was born and grew up in Elkins, West Virginia, which anybody that spent time down there, it's a really good place if you're into the outdoors, which I always was, camping, hunting, fishing, riding, hiking, you name it.
Yeah.
Went to school at Fairmont State University for mechanical engineering and spent some time around Fairmont for several years. That's where I found Fairmont dual sport riders and all that. This past year, my wife and I moved up to Masontown, West Virginia, which that's also a really good area if you're into riding and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Work history-wise, like a lot of people in the state, I worked oil and gas for some period of time out of school, but I worked it from like an engineering side as opposed to labor. And, just worked it with like midstream, then transmission. And my current role is in orthopedic engineering of all things. So I get some flack from my coworkers about working at like a hip and knee orthopedics company and riding dirt bikes. So
you're just helping them keep the business going, man.
Yeah, more or less. That's how I look at it. I'm spreading the gospel and making sure that the cases keep happening.
That's awesome. So go back to that engineer thing, man. Like, so what was that all about?
So as far as like my education engineering, or I knew from a really early age I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. A lot of people that go into the field talk about knowing early because you just really gravitate towards taking stuff apart, putting it back together, all that stuff. So I have, of course, a degree in mechanical. I have a degree in electronics engineering that haven't really put to use outside of my personal hobbies, but it made me really good at troubleshooting wiring diagrams for bikes.
There you
go. So that's been useful. But yeah, it's been an interesting career path so far.
Yeah. So the orthopedics thing, like, what do you do for that?
So I do design and development of like medical instruments.
Okay.
And to a lesser extent, like implant design, like geometries, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting. It's probably the most pure engineering job that I've done because most engineering in this state tends towards like civil, which at that point you're like a glorified project tracker updater. Versus like with medical instruments, I get down into complex assemblies machined to within like sub 1,000th of an inch in a lot of cases. So that's interesting. It's definitely kept me sharp for like, design, 3D modeling, stuff like that. And I do have some 3D printed parts that I designed on my bike. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's some interesting stuff. I come from the healthcare background myself and work in a laboratory, so I'm not as familiar with that side of it, but we've had like different sales reps come through the facility sometimes and get a chance to kind of look at that stuff. It's pretty fascinating. The things you can do to break your body and then the things that healthcare can do to fix it. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I kind of joke occasionally, and this is something else we'll touch on too, is somebody that's benefited from modern healthcare, pretty fortunate to live in a time where you can stuff yourself up pretty bad and get mostly put back together. Whereas like 30, 40 years ago, it would have been a life-changing injury.
Yeah, for sure, man. So let's dive a little bit into this motorcycle thing now. Like, when did you first get into bikes? Like, what kind of bikes were you riding? What style were you riding?
like most people in West Virginia, you kind of start out on a small quad. So I mostly rode quads for several years. At my grandparents' farm, there was, I think, a YZ80, just like a small two-stroke my cousins and I would take around. And
Yeah.
we'd gone down into the river bottom, like wooded area or whatever. We actually spent a bunch of time making our own track at, pretty young age, berming it in. We'd watch content on TV of like actual tracks and stuff like that. It's like, oh, we should try that. We should try to bank this so we could carry more speed around this and everything. And then I tore my ankle up pretty bad. I smashed it between like a 4-foot diameter sycamore tree and the engine
Ooh.
case of that tiny bike. Tore my ankle up at a pretty young age. And
Mm.
that was kind of the end of the two-wheel thing for me. My parents put the stop to that. Still rode quads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I never raced, so a lot of guys in the circle that I ride with, I'm an anomaly for having no racing background at all. So
Yeah.
when I really got into dual sport riding was 2019.
Okay.
I was on my own healthcare plan. I was on my own
Yeah.
health insurance, so that was the first big thing. And I remember sitting on my granddad's porch in Elkins and seeing Yamaha TW200 with the fat tires go by. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, that looks fun. I'd like to get a hold of one of those. And then within a couple weeks, I had one. So that was the bike that I started my dual sport journey on. Of all things, was a TW200.
Solid.
Extremely approachable platform.
Yeah.
I still have it.
Nice.
I love it. At some point, I'm going to buy another one and build it out with like an ATV rear tire and all that junk and use it
Yeah.
for like checking game cameras and,
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
it up to my hunting lease and stuff like that. But
Nice.
so I went from that TW200. I felt that I outgrew it after a certain point because as my confidence and ability increased, I could carry more speed through a section. So I didn't want to be limited by suspension quite as much.
Yeah.
And I went from that to a Kawasaki KLX 250, which you've got a
Okay.
KLX 300.
Yeah.
Again, fantastic platform, even if they're a little heavy. Uh,
Yeah.
had mine been a 300, I don't know that I would have moved on from it like
Yeah.
I did. Put a lot of
That,
miles on that Kawasaki 250.
yeah. The 300, man. I love that thing, man. It is the go anywhere bike. Like I took it last year to you guys' 3 or 4 Detour. I'm jumping
Yep.
ahead a little bit here, but it did better than I thought it would. Like, cause I'm not used to a ton of single track. I definitely ride that thing as a single track, but taking it through some of the sections you guys put in, I was pretty surprised by how well it did. Super happy with that. So before I move on though, how old were you when you bought that TW?
Oh man. Let me do a little bit of math here. I would have been 24.
Okay. Yeah, so a
So
little bit later in life then, yeah.
yeah. And then, James and I talk a lot about on our podcast with like the hobby aging out. Part of that is it's more and more difficult for younger people to scrape together the money to do it,
Yeah.
to just get into it on a whim. It's pretty high startup cost. The
Mhm.
price of used bikes went through the roof post COVID. So
Mhm.
that didn't help. But yeah, I got into it a little bit later than I know several guys have got into it in like their 40s, 50s, etc.
Oh yeah.
So
Definitely come across those guys coming out to my clinics, but I was similar. Like I didn't start until I'd have to look at the math too, but I think I was either 32 or 34 when I bought my first motorcycle.
nice.
And I'd never really ridden anything but maybe a scooter here and there and some four wheelers when I was younger. So I was coming in with a V-Strom 650, 450 freaking pounds, just trying to figure out how to ride it on the street and then getting in the dirt and gravel and then trying to take it on the trails. Being a little bit older, probably in one sense was probably safer because if I would have been in my 20s or younger, I probably would have hurt myself. But being a little bit older, like I was a little bit more cautious and still push myself, but like I feel like it was probably a safer time for me personally to start a little bit later. So
That's a big thing is like the best time to get into it is either before your frontal lobe fully develops or after it's fully developed. Like that transitional time in your mid 20s, probably isn't the best time because you're still a little bit too fearless and your body doesn't bounce. It
Uh,
breaks, you know?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
But
So where did you go after that KLX?
so I went from that to I had a Beta 500 RRS for a period of time,
All right.
and that thing was a high-strung, very capable bike. Downside was I spent a lot of time trying to reel it back in. You know, a lot of the trails here are tight. The stuff that we ride, at least, a lot of it's tight.
hmm
So pretty much any gear that you're in, you could lug that thing pretty heavily, but any gear you're in, you get on the throttle and you better start shifting your weight forward over the gas tank because the front wheel's coming up, and then get on the brakes before the next turn or whatever.
hmm
If I lived out west, that would have been such a great bike for like wide open desert, but
Yeah.
between having what I felt was too much power for what I wanted to do, it also made it difficult to keep traction, especially on like slick hill climbs and stuff like that. There was like no real traction control on it.
Mm-hmm.
Between that and it was a hot running engine. The exhaust header was maybe an inch and a half below the plastic gas tank.
Mm.
So if you were doing like a lot of low speed stuff, like single track, or you were just stopping, ever so often to catch up with your buddies or whatever, uh, gas was boiling in the gas tank, and it ran hot in general, because it was just made to run, wide open and get
Yeah.
adequate airflow for cooling. So I sold that and got, I guess, my favorite bike for what the style of riding I want to do, which is KTM 350 EXCF.
Okay.
And I was never a KTM guy. I was always, a Japanese manufactured bike guy.
Yeah.
Um, that KTM really, I felt opened a lot of doors because it was plenty of power to do pretty much anything you wanted to, but it was more approachable, if that makes sense. It's a little bit harder for that thing to want to come out from under you.
Yeah.
And, I really like the weight distribution, the suspension and stuff, even in its mostly stock form, was great for me. I've had nothing but good service out of it, and that's after drowning it. So probably about 100 engine hours ago, I was out with James and I actually drowned it at a place called Kingsville.
Oh yeah.
And there's like some pretty unavoidable water holes out there.
Yeah.
And, I dropped off into a rut that was made by like a Jeep or a side by side or something and sucked, probably, I don't know, quarter cup of water into the cylinder. So next
Yeah.
thing I knew, I was, taking the gas tank off, taking the spark plug out, and getting all the water out. And
Oh
yeah,
man.
but it's been a great bike. I'm actually in the process of putting a Seat Concepts kit on it currently
Yeah.
to get it ready for this coming riding season.
Oh nice.
But yeah, that thing's been, I've had it since 2022, put a lot of miles on it. It is like a chance to ride like a dirt bike with a license plate. Um,
Yeah.
I highly suggest it because, like I said, I really like my Kawasaki and I put a lot of miles on it, rode a lot of trail. But
Yeah.
then once I got on my KTM, it is 60 pounds lighter. The suspension, in my opinion, was significantly better.
Yeah.
Um, the handling took some getting used to. So, like on Euro bikes, the front end rake is lesser. So, coming from a Japanese bike with a more raked head angle,
hmm
the front ends feel pretty twitchy at first. So that was took some getting used to. It was a
Yeah.
strange feeling. It just felt pretty like washy or unsure, especially in loose stuff until I got used to it. But yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. At this point, like most of the core members of FDSR are on a KTM or a Husqvarna, one of the two.
Yeah. I noticed a bunch of those when I was down at 304 for sure. Looked like a
Yeah.
Eurofest, man.
Yep. It's I don't know that many of us actually ever set out like specifically to get a KTM. It's just that it those ended up checking the most boxes, you know.
Yeah. I think those are, especially just from talking to you and James and being at the 304 and like seeing your guys ride at the Fools Ride and stuff, like those bikes fit your crew very well, I feel like. for sure.
So, and I drop my bike a lot, so the lighter it is and easier it is to pick up, the better.
Yeah, I feel that, man.
So,
That's the thing with that KLX. It is a little heavy sometimes.
yep. And big thing for me, like, was an aftermarket gas tank.
Mm.
Really wanted the extra capacity. So, if you care to hear it, I got a funny story that led to me buying an aftermarket gas tank like the day that I got back from a trip.
Oh yeah, let's hear it, man.
So, we got a group of guys together. James was there, my buddy Arthur, who when I had my Kawasaki and was riding it exclusively, he had a CRF 250L that he took places that one of those bikes should never be able to go. But he was out there. But anyway, we were going to do the Tour de Coalfields, and it takes you through some really remote and rural areas of the southern part of West Virginia.
Uh-huh.
And we were going along, and at that time, both Arthur and I were on KTM's, which per the manual, you're only supposed to run 93 octane because it's like
Uh-huh.
14 and change to one compression, blah blah blah. So we have like our final gas stop before like a long stretch of trail that went across like old strip mines, and like you're not getting gas out there kind of deal. And they didn't have any 93, so we just decided that, we could probably make it. We'll forego the 89 or whatever, which in this state, realistically, it's probably more like 75 octane mixed with water. Some of these rural gas stations, their tanks have holes, there's water intrusion, all that
Uh-huh.
jazz. But we were trying to get to a town called Richwood, and my bike ran out of gas first because I was running some intake mods and a fuel tuner that's a little bit richer, because those bikes from factory have issues with flaming out due to being pretty lean. So
Yeah.
I ran out of gas first, and we just so lucked out that there was a coal mine service truck that came by,
Yeah.
and asked what was going on. Like we tried to, none of us had a siphon or anything like that. So that's something that I carry now too, is a couple feet of hose to siphon. But
Uh-huh.
we were in the process of, I think it was James's bike, trying to put it up onto a bank, open the gas cap, and then lean it down to pour gas into my tank when this guy pulled up, and I thought we were going to get run off. So I was pretty
Yeah.
worried because like everybody else can take off and go, and then I'm going to be sitting
Uh-huh.
here, trying to explain to this guy. But he hooked us up with a Prestone antifreeze bottle full of mystery gas. It just so happened that he had one of the little equipment, gas tanks or whatever in the back of his truck, like for filling excavators and whatnot.
Right.
And, ensured that it wasn't diesel, right? But Lord knows what the octane rating was. I poured about, I don't know, half of that into or no, I think he filled mine from the tank. I had
Uh-huh.
this Prestone antifreeze bottle full of mystery fuel, and I knew that my buddy AJ was going to run out of gas. So I had that thing like between my legs up on the seat, trying to go catch up to him. He ran out of gas like a couple miles down the way. We dumped that
Yeah.
into his bike, and it was just enough to get us where we were going. But
Mm.
I got home after that and immediately ordered on an IMS 4.5 gallon tank. And if you're going to get out and go to pretty remote places, I think either a larger gas tank or like Rotopacks or a
Yeah.
giant loop fuel bag or something like that is a good idea.
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah,
So,
those small bikes, them little tanks, man. Like people don't think about it when they're riding on the East Coast, but like you mentioned, there's definitely places if you're getting out into the thick of it where you're not going to run across any gas
yep.
for a while. So, having something to carry is ideal for sure. Some of my, like for my Allegheny tour, it's designed for bigger bikes, but I've definitely had people with smaller bikes like that come out and ride that loop with us. And we pass, a bunch of gas stations, but I always do tell them, if you got the original tank, I would still carry an MSR bottle or something like that with some gas just in case. I usually carry a siphon too, just in case as well. But you never know when you're going to run out of gas, man.
Something else too, especially if you're riding over towards Mon National Forest, which if anybody's listening to this has ever thought about going out and doing some exploration on Mall National Forest, you're not going to get into any difficult trail out there really, but man, it is such a nice area to just go unwind and, just get out in the woods.
Oh
But
yeah.
if you're in that area, a lot of the gas stations that used to be open aren't anymore. And just because Google says that their hours are from blank to blank doesn't mean that it's actually open. And they're old enough that they don't have, in some cases, there's no card reader or anything on the pump. If the store is closed, you're not getting fuel.
Oh yeah. So I know like what we do is kind of risky, riding motorcycles. It's only two wheels, so it's just naturally unbalanced unless you're moving.
Yep.
And even then, sometimes you can lose your balance. And I've fallen and gotten myself hurt a few times for sure. I've broken foot, broken wrist, smashed up shoulders, and all kind of things. And I know, fairly recently you had yourself a little injury. So what happened when you wrecked, and what did you do afterwards, man?
It was 2024 on the FDSR Easy Loop. I'd went and done the hard loop and all that stuff, and you'd think that's where you're going to have your issue. You think that's where you're going to get yourself stuffed up, but not necessarily. I was actually on my Kawasaki 250, so typically what I would do is run my KTM for a hard loop and my Kawasaki on like 50/50 tires for the Easy Loop. But I hit a square edge rock, and when you hit one just right, you can feel it just smack your rim. I
Oh yeah.
mean, that. So I just thought, oh, I'm probably gonna have to, when I get back after my ride or whatever, I'm gonna have to check my spoke tension and maybe take this wheel off and get a couple blocks of wood and a mallet and beat this dent back out of it. So what had actually happened was I'd pinched my tube when that
Okay.
happened and
Hmm.
flattened my front tube, and the section of gravel that I came up into after that was loose. So, riding on loose gravel, you're used to your front end being a little bit squirrely,
Oh
and
yeah.
went to go into the next turn, and without knowing the tire was flat. And of course, it just rolled off the bead.
Yeah.
And, I think I high sided and put my
Uh-huh.
hands out.
Yeah.
Normally, I'm good at saving a slide on gravel,
Hmm.
but only if there's air in my front tire, apparently. So I knew as soon as I stood up, I knew that I had broken my right wrist because I looked
Yeah.
down at it and it wasn't right.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah. So I had my then fiance, now wife, come get me and got my bike loaded up. And the whole time I'm like, oh, it's just my right wrist. It's going to suck for a while. It's going to be okay. I
Yeah.
thought I just stove my left one. Well, long story short, go to the ER. They want to x-ray the left, and I broke both of them. So I spent
Mm.
6 weeks and two casts. Um, so that 2024 ride was going to be like, after that one, I was going to just put my bikes and stuff up because I was getting married in September.
Yeah.
So I got out of
Yeah.
casts like right before we were going to get married, like less than 2 weeks before, and I had to
Oh
go
man.
get my suit jacket refit because my casts were too fat to fit through the armholes, so I had to wait till those were off. And
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I got a piece of titanium in my right wrist. Very fortunate that I don't have any complications. Rehab went well. Lost a little bit of range of motion, but
Yeah.
can still ride and all that.
Yeah.
Coming back from injury is one thing, but trying to get your confidence back on a bike is something entirely different, especially if it's something that like you didn't necessarily do wrong.
Yeah.
If you try a hill climb or something like that and get hurt, or try to go too fast across Slick Creek Rock and get hurt, you're like, all right, I just won't go as fast next time, or I won't do this, or I won't do that. But like,
Yeah.
they're there for a little bit, before I could start to get a little bit of confidence back and kind of accept reality. I was looking into running like a moose up front or something because I was just so scared of that happening again
Yeah.
to some extent. Let's see, it would have been last year. I started doing, kind of easing myself back into it. We bought a house in January, so like the first year of homeownership and all that stuff, I didn't get a ton of time to ride. like
Hmm.
leisurely. I still made the detour and all that stuff, but we went and
Yeah.
did Red River Scramble this past fall, and that was like my first big ride since my wrist injuries.
Okay.
And it started off pretty rough. So I was like, man, I should have rode more locally. I should have built my confidence and stuff up. And then it was just, just kind of clicked in my head like, well, you're already out here. You might as well just, you know,
Uh-huh.
think positive and try to make it a good experience. And as the day went on, my confidence and stuff came back, and I got some faith in, riding a bike in general again. And
Yeah.
that was a great experience. But that's something that's difficult to do. I know a lot of riders after their first, wipeout, get really discouraged. And there's I see a lot of bikes on marketplace with low hours with like scratches on one side of the bike from where it got laid down.
Oh
But
yeah.
uh but yeah, I mean it is a hobby that comes with risk, but people that don't do it won't understand. I had people, you know, I'm sure you've experienced it. Anytime you wreck or
Uh-huh.
something like that, it's like, oh, when he's selling it,
Yeah.
better get rid of it. Like, no, this hobby for me is one of the most enjoyable I've ever had. And anytime I'm talking to somebody that's, kind of thinking about getting into the hobby or something like that, they always tell them, it's like, yeah, I broke both my wrists and I loved it so much I got right back on it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
still do it. It's really, really rare to find a rider who hasn't had some form of injury they've had to overcome.
Oh, for sure. I think you could do a podcast with a couple guys and probably last 2 hours and still have more to talk about because once you do it for so long, it just happens.
Yep.
And it's funny, like, because I remember seeing you and James down at Red River Scramble. I think we ran into each other at one of the gas stations right in town there. And that is some no joke terrain to, like, get your sea legs back, dude. So that's pretty
Yeah.
intense just being there for sure, man.
Yeah. So I did like two just kind of putt around Mason Town local rides, solo. Did some of the detour, but I was really like where we met on Fort Hill.
Yeah.
I spent most of my day out there trying to help guys out. We'll get into this when we talk about it more at length, but like the guys that live around Fairmont, we've ridden that so many times that it's gotten stale.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I like try to help, where I can during the events like that. But
Yeah, it's cool.
yeah, I didn't watch any footage for Red River Scramble, had no idea what I was getting myself into, which is that's my preference, because
Yeah.
if I don't know what it's going to be like, I can't second guess or doubt myself, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
But yeah, we got on
It's
that Sheltoe single track. Everything just kind of clicked again. It's like this is what it was about.
Yeah, I've said that to people in the past. Like, I think sometimes it's better not to know.
Yeah.
It's better not to know what's around the next corner. It's better not to know what your day is in stock because you can psych yourself out very easily. So just having to react to the situation in front of you at that moment sometimes is the better way to do it.
Yep. And then a lot of these obstacles and stuff, momentum is the key.
Oh yeah.
Not necessarily speed, but just momentum. So
Oh
if
yeah.
you watch a bunch of video footage and you know that there's like some, gnarly climb or something like that right after this turn, you're going to be, you're already tensed up. You're
Uh-huh.
already worried about it versus if you're just carrying your momentum and it comes as a surprise, then, kind of your subconscious takes over. It's like, man, that's a big hill. You better get on the throttle. And
Uh-huh.
next thing you know, you're at the top of it.
Yep.
I watch very, very little footage, if at all, or do very little research anytime we're going to travel somewhere to go ride. Like Fool's Ride, watched very, very little. This would be my first time doing it. So
Yeah, yeah.
I just like stuff to be kind of a surprise. That's the sense of adventure in the hobby.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think that's the better way to do it too, truthfully. Like I did this, truthfully, I did the same thing with the 304. Like I talked to people that had been there, and I talked to you and James about it a little bit, and I saw like a couple pictures here and there, but I didn't really want to actively seek out the terrain. Like I needed to know a little bit because I was running that, the riding clinic, so I
Yes.
needed to know a little bit of what I was getting myself into. But in a sense, I wanted it to be somewhat of a surprise. Like, it's kind of hard to like plan a clinic without knowing something. So I had to do that a little bit, but it was super fun to get out there and go into new things and see new stuff and just be able to react to it in real time. That's part of the fun, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that for me too. So I deal pretty much exclusively in dual sports, but the whole adventure crowd, a lot of them are really, really great guys to be around. You know,
Yeah.
I've spent time around a lot of great adventure bike riders, but there's like a subset of them that try to do everything they can to boil the sense of adventure out of the hobby. It's
Yeah.
like it's like, you know, I need a perfected GPX file, which
Uh-huh.
um, I like to have decent navigation, don't get me wrong, but I've also spent my time using paper maps, you
Yeah.
know, and
Uh-huh.
the rides I've been on where we navigated with paper maps and stuff like that were pretty memorable. But you know, just trying to boil a sense of adventure out of it, trying to bring everything down to like a formula or something like that for trying to get out and explore.
Hmm.
You know, I feel like I've had just as much fun going out with no itinerary
Oh, yeah.
whatsoever. And where's this go? Where's that go? Or if you've done it for a while like I have, I've got a like a Google Earth file of pretty much all my favorite trails and you know can just kind of bring it up on my Garmin. It's like I know on this trail there's something that shoots off to the left. Where's it go?
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I just like getting out exploring. That's what drew me to the hobby. I used to be big into like Jeeps and the off-road stuff and all that. I still have my Jeep and my wife
Yeah.
and I still take it out and everything. The amount of ground that you can cover on a dual sport compared to a Jeep,
Oh,
like
yeah.
just we had good weather this past Saturday. We took my Jeep out for a small stint and what took us 30 minutes in the Jeep, it's like, man, I'd have been done 20 minutes ago on a bike. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. We're talking about 15 miles an hour versus like 30 or
Oh, yeah.
35. But yeah, that's what really drew me into it was the sense of exploration and everything. And, you know, it really filled a void that kind of started when there were more like land rights issues and road closures and things of that nature
Yeah.
that made it more difficult to like take the Jeep out. We used to spend a lot of time in like Davis and Thomas and
Hmm.
uh, that area over time has just been more and more like closed off. Of course, you can still do Canaan Loop and Canyon Rim, which
Yeah.
anybody that's listening, if you're in the Davis Thomas area, you need to go do those because they're a great time. It's crazy that they're public, especially Canaan Loop for as rough as it is.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. That's one of my favorites down there for sure.
Yep. We've camped on Canaan Loop. I haven't camped on it with a bike, but I've camped on it at least with my Tacoma and maybe once with my Jeep.
Mm.
And man, it's just a favorite. That's such a beautiful part of the state.
Yeah, for sure. It's gorgeous. I think you're spot on with, I guess I would call it like over preparing. And I think when you're new, it's easy to do that. Like, cause I think you have to be prepared to some extent.
I
Like
agree.
your bike needs to be good to go, maintenance wise, all this stuff done. Like you need to have a general idea maybe of where you're going, especially when you're newer, so you don't get lost. But there comes a point where it's too much, like where you're just starting to cook all of the fun stuff out of it by wanting to know every minute detail of your day, every second by second. Like you have to leave room for exploration. That is kind of the whole point of adventure and dual sport is to have an experience and go find some new stuff. And maybe it's not new to the people in that area, but it's new to you. Like that is the exploration part is let's go to places we haven't been to before.
I agree entirely. You know, this hobby for me is a way to put like anxiety and all that stuff aside and just try to get out and do something that makes me feel alive. And again, that's a big reason as to why I don't do a ton of research on, you know, if I'm going to go to somebody else's event or just occasionally just leave the house with no plans. I just want to go out and explore and see what's out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's word of mouth is ideal. Like that's why you kind of hooked up with the Fool's Ride, and that's why I kind of hooked up with three
Yep.
or four. Is like people said, "Hey, this is really killer riding. If you like to ride like this 304 thing is going to be awesome for you. If you like to ride
Yep.
like this Fool's Ride thing is going to be cool for you." And that's generally in the past for me. That's been enough for me to say, all right, let me go take a look at that thing. That's enough. I don't need to research the hell out of it, And if I do have a question, maybe I'll just ask my whoever told me about it. Hey, what do you think about this? It's a fun way to do it for sure. And I think like kind of going back to the injury thing, I guess you kind of mentioned, that you had a bad accident, break both wrists, which had to suck for a short amount of time there, and you got back on it. And let's say you were in your Jeep and you hurt yourself in your Jeep. Would anybody question that you would buy a new Jeep or go and ride your Jeep again? No, they probably wouldn't because it's a car. What's the difference? People wreck in cars every day. Just because I
Yeah.
wrecked on a bike doesn't mean I'm going to stop riding the bike. Like that's the whole point of it, is to challenge yourself, push the limits a little bit. And that is another part of the rewarding part is the fact that you have challenged yourself and you got through it. Even if you're broke something, like, well, I'm going to dust it off, I'm going to heal up, and then I'm going to get back out again because you need that challenge in your life and you want to get through the adversity and see things out in the world.
Yeah, I agree. In West Virginia, you'll be out on trails and you'll pass like a memorial or something like that, and it is for people that have passed away in like side-by-side accidents. And
Yeah.
it's extremely unfortunate, but as big as side-by-side culture is in this state, it's not uncommon. And I know people that have stuffed them up pretty bad and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
yeah, nobody's like, well, don't ride side by sides anymore. Like I don't know. And just to clarify, like after my injury, so this was my first like real serious injury. I had
Mm.
in hindsight, small shoulder injury in
Hmm.
2020. I separated my collarbone from my shoulder blade,
Yeah.
AC joint, and that healed up pretty good.
Yeah.
And but this was like my first like, man, I don't know what life's going to look like on the other side of this one,
Yeah.
especially knowing as soon as I got up, it's like that's going to have to be plated
Yeah.
because you spend a little bit of time in orthopedic, related fields, you kind of know. But
Yeah.
it went through my head. It's like, do I want to keep doing it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Am I gonna sell my bikes? And yeah, I fought with myself for a while about it and everything.
Hmm.
But after I started to heal back up and everything, I just kept an open mind. It's like if I get back into it, I do. If I don't, I don't. If I get into it, I want it to be because I want to do it, not because my friends are doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's something I'd say is semi-common with people with serious injuries. Is like, you know, am I okay with the idea of this potentially happening again?
Yeah.
But for me, this is something that I really enjoy doing. It's one of my absolute favorite hobbies. It combines so many things I enjoy, like
Hmm.
being outdoors, exploration, especially going out with a group of guys and stuff like that. Nothing matches the energy or the fun or anything like that. A big thing for me was this was a hobby that I could see myself get better at,
Hmm.
especially like as I was a beginner. I got in with FDSR would have been late 2019, and for
Hmm.
all intents and purposes was a novice. If you can ride with a group of guys that are above your skill level, you inevitably will improve,
For sure.
provided that you can avoid wrecking, right? So like a big thing for me is if there was stuff I didn't want to do when I was out with them, I just didn't do it.
Yeah.
There's a couple instances I just turn around and go home or something
Yeah.
like that. I think that a lot of people would benefit from having some kind of hobby that challenges them. It doesn't have to be riding. It could be even something like weightlifting.
Yeah.
I think people should have some form of hobby that kind of shows you like you can overcome, you can improve, I think that's something a lot of people are missing. A lot of people's lives
Yeah.
are too safe
Yeah, I agree.
currently.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. There's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of benefits to riding motorcycles. And I think particularly with the adventure and dual sport crowd, because you have more room to roam for sure.
Yep.
And you kind of mentioned before, like the adventure community, and I believe the adventure and dual sport are very similar, similar enough that I try to lump them together into one almost. But that community itself is very open arm, welcome. They're interested in helping you along and getting you to a place where you're a better rider. And you mentioned too, like there's no shame in coming up to a thing and saying, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." You have to know your own limits. Sure, you want to push past them eventually, but you got to know when to say no and when it just, yeah, maybe I'll just head home, or I'll meet you guys on the other side. I'm going to just take a little detour. There's nothing wrong with those things. Like, and I feel like the adventure and the dual sport community is like that, very low pressure. Hey, if you want to try it, we'll help you. You can do this, 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 or I'll ride the thing for you, or you can go around and we'll meet you. There's really no, at least the events that I've gone to and the ones that I put on myself, I want it to be a no pressure thing. Like you do what you want to do, and we'll help you get through the thing for sure.
Getting with newer riders with skill level, and I really like to take them out and show them like you could do this. You had the ability. It was a mental block.
Yeah.
Things like that. I really like to see people improve. The stewardship to other riders is a big aspect of this sport, yeah, especially if you're going to go out and do like a multi-day trip or,
Mm.
some really difficult single track that's remote, is you got to have trust in the group that you're going with.
Yeah.
And that applies to both machine and human breakdowns.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you said earlier about, you said something about bike maintenance, making sure
Hmm.
your bike's ready. So that's something that I'm a huge proponent of, and I've suffered as a result of people not having their bikes like in decent order to go out.
Yeah.
Their chain's about falling off the sprocket, or their wheel bearings are so shot you're getting like a quarter inch of play each way out of the wheel.
Yeah.
And something else that I've been big on. So since I really like to just turn wrenches, I've always liked to just work on stuff in general. I've always been big on like toolkits.
Yeah.
So I had a pretty well thought out tool bag, like for taking the Jeep and stuff out for like common issues that
Hmm.
you'll run into. Same deal with bikes. I always encourage people to, even if you're not going to ride alone, even if you're riding with a group, you need to have a
Hmm.
toolkit that's adequate for your bike, because
Yeah.
inevitably somebody will forget something. So that happened just this past year, the 2025 304 Detour Hard Loop. There was one of the guys that I know had gotten a flat, and I was out with Fred Miller, who Fred's a huge reason that I'm in this hobby in general. Fred lived in Reevesville while I lived in Fairmont.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time over at Hell's Hollow and Fort Hill, just riding around. And Fred is responsible for a lot of people getting into the hobby with FDSR. He's
Mm.
just a really patient, approachable guy. He's a talented rider, and he won't necessarily psych you up, like, shake your shoulders like, come on, you got this. But it's more of a gentle, like, I know you can do it, just focus and get through it. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'd always known Fred to carry tire irons, always, no matter
Uh-huh.
what. But I always carried a small set of Motion Pro tire irons too,
Hmm.
because flats are really common.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and sometimes they lead to you breaking your wrists, which isn't ideal. But
No.
uh, I pulled up, Fred pulled in behind me. I was like, all right, flat tire, I got a spare tube. Because these guys didn't have anything, didn't have a tube, didn't have tire irons, didn't have
Yeah.
any tools to take the rear axle off or the adjusters or anything really.
Yeah.
So I asked Fred, like, all right, do you got your tire irons? Let's get this knocked out and get back to camp. And he said, no, I'm running mooses,
Ah.
front and rear, so no tire
Yeah.
irons. So,
Yeah.
if I hadn't been carrying my own set, then we would have just kind of waved at him and kept riding. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of having a toolkit specific to your bike
Yeah,
or
for sure.
spares specific to your bike. Like on KTM's, there's an inline fuel filter that's like the size of a grain of rice. That's common, especially in this state, for getting loaded up with sediment from fuel. I always carry, spares of those, and I
Hmm.
just encourage anybody to develop your own toolkit for your bike.
Yeah, for sure. That's part of that figuring out how prepared you need to be. Like that is
Yep.
not over preparing. That is preparing for something that is inevitably gonna happen.
Yep.
Bikes break down, especially tire things. The minimum is that stuff to get some wheels off of the
Yep.
bike, for sure.
Yeah, for me, like anything for like basic suspension stuff, be able to remove your front wheel, your rear wheel. For me, because we ride in a lot of water and stuff like that, I carry a spark plug tool and a spare spark plug,
Yeah.
which came in handy in Kingsville when I drowned my bike, like I was talking about earlier. But I try not to go overboard from an engineering side. You're always trying to visualize, like, all right, how is this system going to fail? What are my potential modes of failure and stuff like that? But I got to stop myself because it's like after a certain point, you're doing too much.
Yeah.
But I've met guys that carry case splitters,
Hmm.
like to
Jeez.
actually split the two halves of the engine case.
Yeah.
And past a certain point of like basic trail maintenance, if you're starting to get into splitting cases in the woods, you need to find a way to just get that thing to a shop,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
can only do so much out there. But another big thing that I try to get everybody to carry is JB Weld.
Oh yeah.
So when we were at Red River Scramble, our friend Chad sunk the front end of his bike down into the craziest hole that I've ever seen. Not in terms of size, but it was only about 2 feet in diameter, but the sides
Yeah.
were straight up and down. It was like a foot
Uh-huh.
and a half deep. And the way it landed, it punched the shifter through the stator cover.
Oh yeah.
And so we're scrambling. It's like the go-to is to find a beer can. You're going to
Yep.
cut up and use a piece of patch material. And
Yeah.
I was the only guy that had some JB Weld.
Oh yeah.
And unfortunately, it wasn't the quick cure. I normally try to carry
Yeah.
quick cure, but for
Yeah.
some reason, I just had the original in my bag. And somebody, I think it was James, was talking about, man, it's going to take this forever to cure. I was like, well, you're welcome to use the JB Weld in your bag if that's not going to work. But
Yeah.
you know
Something's
that,
better than nothing.
yeah. But that saved the day. Of course, we had to send one of our guys off to go get oil. That's something that I need to
Yeah.
figure out is being able to carry maybe like even a half quart or something like that of oil,
Yeah.
because
Something small.
yeah, you punch through your side case, you'd be surprised at how much can run out, especially
Yeah.
on a bike like a KTM. You're only dealing with like a liter or 800 milliliters. My buddy Arthur, I was talking about earlier, that also ran out of gas when he had a CRF 250L. He busted up the water pump outlet of his bike, and it got fixed the
Mm.
same way, a piece of a beer can and some JB Weld.
Yeah.
So I enjoy trail fixes, really. I like how are we going to get this thing back to camp or get it back home
Yeah.
kind of scenario.
Yeah. It's a team building experience,
Yeah, I agree.
And you mentioned you're part of that club. I'm coming from a slightly different angle where I hold a bunch of different clinics and events, and my goal is to build my community that way. But you guys have this club, and I think it is very important, especially when you're first starting, to find a group of people like you found the club. So that kind of helped you grow as a rider. And then the bonds that you form through trailside maintenance, pointing each other up hills, trying to drag people through things, and having a good time out there. Those are all part of like the good side of adventure and dual sport, that team building, the camaraderie, a little bit of type 2 fun sometimes, but that's definitely part of it,
We even had Type 3 fun on a few occasions. But yeah, the people that this hobby exposes you to are generally just great people.
Yeah,
By and large, everybody that I've met that's been involved in this hobby has been, somebody that you'd easily sit around a campfire and have a beer with.
oh yeah, for sure.
This hobby does seem to attract a specific type of person, and most of them seem to get along with each other quite well.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, as far as FDSR goes, I've really enjoyed being involved in a club. It's a great way to just get exposed to more of the hobby. A big thing
Mhm.
for me was you go out with a group of people and everybody's got kind of a specific riding style. I tend to the slower but more technical side of it,
Mhm.
especially, still trying to get all my confidence back post injury. But
Yeah.
you go ride with a group of new people and you're like, all right, this guy has a riding style that's similar to mine or a pace that's similar to mine. And
Yeah.
then you go out, just do that again. You find another guy that matches your kind of style.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you've built your own little subgroup.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's great. Yeah, I go out with the guys that have racing backgrounds or, a group that's led by James. I'm normally in the
Mhm.
back and yeah, I'm content with it. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, but because I hate the idea of somebody like detuning their pace for my sake.
Yeah.
I'd rather just hang out at the back. It's like I'm not going to get there fast, but I'm going to get there, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
The club in general has been really, I guess, formative. Like I said, I've been at it since 2019.
Mhm.
Um, my my first exposure to the club was actually guys would meet at Hardee's. This is before I knew anything about there being a dual sport club. I got my Kawasaki like on a Friday. I went and bought it. And then
Yeah.
like Saturday, I was going to go meet my then girlfriend, now wife, for coffee. She was going to drive her car and I was going to ride the bike I just bought, right?
Yeah.
And I passed Hardee's and I saw a group of dual sports out there and I swung in and was asking them like, do you guys know any local trails? Because I'm always trying to find new stuff to go ride. And
Yeah.
they're like, well, there's this road, and somebody, I can't remember who it was like, well, we're riding over to Canaan today. How about you just come with us?
Yeah.
And yeah, I had familiarity with Canaan from riding, taking my Jeep over there and all that stuff. But
Uh-huh.
I thought about it, and I called my girlfriend and I was like, hey, I just bumped into this group of complete strangers at Hardee's, and they want me to go ride into the wilderness over towards Davis with them. And that was my first trip out with FDSR, and I've been a part of it ever since.
Yeah.
It was just really cool to have like a really natural, almost like meant to be exposure to that group.
Yeah.
Just swinging in the Hardee's that day.
The stars align, man. But I'd say even more so on that, the fact that that girlfriend still married you even after you ditched her, and she was cool with you doing that. That's pretty cool, man.
And still married me after I broke both my wrists riding. So,
The
but yeah,
patient
she's
woman.
she's been incredibly supportive, the light of my life, etc. But
Yeah.
I've been teaching her how to ride.
Oh, nice.
So a couple years ago, I've always liked Trail 90s. I just think they're quirky and
Yeah.
cool. So I bought one, and then last year after we bought our house, I went and bought a Project Trail 90s. So I now have a red one and a yellow one for like ketchup and mustard. But red one's mine, yellow one's hers, and we're in the process of getting her to learn how to ride, and just however far she wants to take it's you know fine with me. If all she wants to do is go to my hunting lease and putt around on a trail 90 for a day, then I'm perfectly fine with it. But yeah, she
Nice.
was slowly getting the hang of it, and then of course after I broke my wrist, that was kind of done for, like, riding lessons for the rest of the summer.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's been a great time.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I think it's great that like that random chance encounter has led to like some really great things, for you personally for sure, for that club and for the community as a whole, because you guys are, putting on the 304 Detour events and other group rides that I see get posted up all the time. So just building that community up has been pretty awesome, from watching that from my side of it at least. Go back to the community thing real quick. Like, I think one of the good things is, like, we kind of mentioned like how open and how cool the adventure dual sport community is. And I'd say the little extra I just wanted to throw in there was there is a common bond between people that are attracted to this thing. It's outdoors, it's a little bit of a challenge, it's exploration. And that is regardless of what politics you have, how much money you have in your bank account, how you grew up, what religion you're following. All of those things kind of like fade out into the woods somewhere and away from you when you're doing that stuff. And then you have that experience, that type 2
I
fun, and then you go back to camp and maybe those topics come up, but now instead of it being coming from an angry place, it's coming from, hey, we had this shared experience. We're friends now. Okay, let's talk about these things in a more compassionate way. That's what I love seeing when I go out to these events and rides.
Yeah, I agree. You get with a new group, you go out as strangers, and you do come back with some level of bond between you.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite things about this hobby is that virtually nobody asks me what I do. Like for a living, for
Yeah.
instance,
Uh-huh.
they ask you what tire are you running, what PSI
Yeah.
are you running your tire, do you prefer, like a Renthal or a DID chain, you know.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's such a great disconnect from the way things normally are, like being tied to your job title or
Yeah.
something like that. So instead you're tied to your bike and like your gear choice and all that
Uh-huh.
stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been a lot of instances I've ridden with somebody one time, and then we become like lifelong friends after
Yeah.
that. So
Mm-hmm.
there's very few other hobbies that offer something like that.
Yeah, for sure, man. It breaks down all kind of barriers, and I think what happens is, or I guess what has happened over since I've been alive at least, is there's been less things to bring people together, or it's gotten kind of like where you can find your own little thing, and then you just only do that little thing. Where this breaks down the barriers, it gives you this shared experience, and it just allows people to like calm down before they interact, for lack of a better term. And that's what I love about this thing too, for sure.
Yeah, I mean everybody, especially in this day and age, despite social media that was supposed to bring us closer together, like people are just searching for genuine human connection.
Yeah.
And for me, this hobby's been a great way to get that.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Plus, you'd be surprised at how little you care about political differences, things of that nature. If you're just happy that you survived whatever hellscape of a trail that whoever's in front took you through.
Yeah. It's fun to like, me being the guy that's, coaching at the clinics and running tours and rallies, that's the fun part, is like watching that happen. Like I've had it happen to me as I've gotten into this, but now that I'm developing and building things, I get to watch sometimes a newer rider or sometimes a seasoned rider come into this thing, and then maybe I know them a little bit, because I definitely know people are on one side of the political spectrum and then these ones are on the other, and you kind of see that, and then you see them go out and ride together and help each other get through things, and start high fiving. And then at the end of the day, they're just sitting around a campfire, toasting, drinking beers, telling stories, and they don't care about those other things. So that's been like a really fun, rewarding part from my eyes, like watching that happen over and over and over again. It makes me feel better about the world, despite the news and the social media and all the other stuff that wants to scare the shit out of you or tell you things are terrible or to be scared of your neighbor. Like I get to see that, not every single day, but multiple times a month, where people are just coming together regardless of all that stuff. That's been a really fun part.
Like I said, it's just such a good disconnect.
Yeah.
Especially for me, like riding is a hobby that demands total mental focus.
Yeah.
So for somebody's brain who really like doesn't shut up, doesn't stop getting out and riding, like I get out on the trails, I get out among the pines, among rhododendrons, creek beds, single track, all that,
Yeah.
and everything just clicks. All the rest of the stuff fades away. It's like this is life. The rest of the stuff and the worries is just, noise.
Yeah.
But trying to explain that to somebody that's never done it is
It's tough. Yeah.
pretty difficult to get somebody to understand.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things you have to kind of do, get involved with, go out and like experiment with, to really understand that stuff for sure. Yeah. So your crew puts on the 304 Detour. So we've had James on before. He's talked about that event a little bit, but I'd love to hear like from your perspective, like how this event has grown for sure, and like some of the things along the way, but maybe a little bit of a look forward at the one that's coming up too, like a little bit of that too, man.
I got in with this group late 2019. Of course, there started to be like rumblings after a little bit of like we should put on some kind of not just hey we're going to meet up at Hardee's and go ride, but like an actual hard loop. It's like there's enough trails around here that we can set
Hmm.
this up and we can make it happen.
Yeah.
So the first year the 304 Detour got put on was 2020 during COVID, right?
Uh-huh.
And a lot of the other local events, and when I say local, I mean like Ohio, PA, stuff like that, they had
Hmm.
been closed or put on hold due to COVID.
Yeah.
Well, in West Virginia, you could still have an outdoor event. You know, there weren't restrictions quite
Yeah.
as bad, or they got lifted at some point. So, our first attempt at putting on this event, we got way more turnout than we thought we were going to get. We were drowning. And at this point, we didn't have GPX files or stuff like that.
Oh, geez.
The club members that knew the trails were going to be trail leads or trail
Yeah.
bosses or whatever you want to call them,
Right.
and that was great until like we got out there and the guys that were supposed to be behind us decided they were just going to take their own path through stuff, right? So there was a little bit of tail chasing. It was a learning experience,
Hmm.
but yeah, we've continued to put it on. Nick Hall, the president of FDSR, James Wright,
Hmm.
Fred Miller have been instrumental in
Yeah.
continue to put these things on. And there is, I'm sure you know this as somebody that puts on events, the amount of background work that
Oh, yeah.
goes on for these events is really really significant. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
what you see is the tip of the iceberg versus the entirety of it that's under the surface of the water. But
For
we'll have
sure.
guys come up to us and I'm always happy when people are excited.
Yeah.
But they're like, man, this trail, is so great and whatever. It's like, yeah, I'm sick of seeing it because I've ridden it like, 10 times within the last couple months for
Uh-huh.
routing and all that. But
Yeah.
yeah, so another I guess prevailing issue, or I don't know if it's quite an issue, teething problem. I don't know how to explain it. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, it's really difficult to make something that everybody enjoys.
Oh, yeah.
We will
Hmm.
do a hard loop, and we did one in the past that people complained was too easy. So the next hard loop was be careful what you wish for. Part of the reason why the 2024 hard loop was easy is because we had a drought, and
Oh, yeah.
there were sections of trail that were always extremely difficult, right? That
Uh-huh.
were made really easy. You could idle a bike up it with like road tires. One of which was Fetterman Hollow. There are mud holes out there deep enough to swallow a Jeep that I've never
Mm-hmm.
seen the bottom of until the drought. Um, but as a result of that, we can't control the weather. Some people had complained that it was too easy that year. So we
Yeah.
sought for this past year to make sure that it was difficult, and Mother Nature really helped us out. And as somebody that did the hard loop, you understand. So I was out on Fort Hill with Fred Miller, and we were just out there trying to help guys. And a
Yeah.
lot of these real slick clay hill climbs, people need help getting their bikes up, and make sure people stay in good spirits. It's like you dumped your bike, don't get discouraged, throw your leg over it and try
Yeah.
again. And
Uh-huh.
there was this guy that came up to me, and he looked about like he was fighting for his life. And he asked me, he said, well, how do I get to the closest main road? And I said, well, at this point, like pretty much you're just going to follow the arrows. You're in so deep that the only way out is through.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, man, I'm really struggling, or something to that tune. Of course, exhaustion in his eyes and all the
Uh-huh.
sweat. And he said, And I'm one of the guys that complained it was too easy last year. So that's one I like to tell. Be careful what you wish for. Um,
That's awesome.
for this year's hard loop, you're always aiming to make it a little bit better than it was the previous year,
Yeah.
and it should be a great time like it always is. Even from the standpoint of guys that put it on, like, you know, you'll hear some man, this is getting too hard, or are we going to keep doing this type thing, and everybody just keeps doing it.
Yeah. Hmm.
There's something about it. A big thing of it is once you put on one of these events, you start to get some regulars,
Yeah.
and then you really want to see your regulars again because a lot of these people, it's the only time of year you get to see them,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so that's a pretty rewarding aspect of it. But as far as like having an easy loop and then originally it was an easy loop and an adventure loop is
Yeah.
everybody wants to have a little bit different ride. So the closest that we could get is like, or sorry, a hardcore loop and then an easy loop slash intermediate loop. Anyway, so
Yeah.
like when we say hardcore, some of it's two track. We've been fortunate enough around the area to be able to cut in single track on some landowners that support the club,
Yeah.
and so that's really helped make things a little bit more difficult, kind of
Oh
crank the
yeah.
difficulty up a little bit. Um, but then there's folks that want to have a more easy ride, like more fire roads and things of that nature.
Hmm.
So that's where the hard and easy loop, well, I don't really want to call it easy, it's intermediate
Right. Yeah.
loop, and there's like some what we call hero sections. If you're really feeling it that day, instead of taking this road, you can take a road that like loops off and horseshoes back around, but it's significantly more difficult. And that was the closest way to strike a balance for what different riders wanted out of the event.
Yeah. That's definitely always like a tough part about putting together routing for a rally style event is you get such a wide range of people, like especially with my stuff because I'm running the clinics too. So I get like people that are brand stinking new. Maybe they rode a street bike for a while, or when they, 40 years ago when they were a kid, they rode a dirt bike, and now they're on an adventure bike. So I can't throw them into the hard stuff. So it's kind of hard to like develop multiple options for people. And then I think sometimes the harder part is kind of trying to explain what it is. Like as you were talking there, it's kind of hard to like say, is it a bit easy or is it intermediate without giving people like a gauge, I guess. Because everybody's coming from different angles and different experiences, and what's hard for me is easy for you or vice versa. So it's always a tough thing. And I know just from talking to like Drew with Red River Scramble and talking to you and James, like trying to figure out how to make it a little bit clearer as to what people can expect. It's always kind of tough. Because then some people just aren't going to read anything. They're just going to show up and say, "Oh, I thought this was the easy one." Well, no, you're on the hard one, dude. Like, it's just you're always going to get every one in the crowd for sure.
Yep. And then, you attempt to post up GoPro footage or something like that, and it never does the terrain justice.
Oh yeah.
And the first year that we did it, we kind of asked riders, like, just kind of rate yourself on what kind of rider do you think you are,
Uh huh.
as to whether you're going to go on the hardcore loop or the intermediate loop. And unfortunately, some people have a little bit too much confidence, if you catch my drift. And I hate to get people in over their heads,
Yeah.
because once you're in over your head, you're really not having fun anymore. And the point of it is to get out and have a good time. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's really difficult. And you've heard people talk about, like, level 1 through 5. How difficult is this? It's like I can't even assign a level of difficulty to it,
Yeah.
because if it's local, I've ridden it so many times that I could almost do it
Mhm.
with my eyes closed in
Yeah,
some
that makes a
cases.
huge difference. Like home field advantage, there's something to that for sure. Like if it's your area, it's easy to say, "Oh, that's easy." But then you drag somebody that's new to the area through it, and they're like, "Holy shit, dude, that was way too hard." So yeah, that's always one of the toughest parts about building various levels of routing for people is trying to figure out where to put everybody.
And then, you always get comments, suggestions, etc. But folks who've never attempted to organize an event don't quite understand the
Mm.
difficulties of
Oh yeah.
it can't be tailored to everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
at some point a balance has to be struck.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. So last year I came down, I did like more of an enduro style clinic. And on Friday, we went to Wolf Heaven Tree Farm, did our little clinic thing there. And then we took the guys out and did, we definitely didn't do the full day of routing. We had to like pick and choose because the different skill levels I had with me. But it was super fun to hit some of that stuff. And then the next day, we kind of did the same thing with your intermediate ADV loop, but we did them on pretty much on dual sport bikes. This coming year, I asked James about it. I wanted to come back down, but I wanted just for myself partially, and just because when I was out there on that intermediate adventure loop, I kind of had this idea that instead of an enduro style clinic, I would try to attach a ADV touring style clinic, but make it a little bit harder, so a bit more like intermediate plus level. Because that intermediate adventure loop is no joke. It's pretty hairy on an adventure bike.
Yeah,
So
we used to call it the easy loop, and we stopped doing that because it was a little bit, again, because it's easy for us on bikes that weigh 250 to 300 pounds.
yeah.
You get somebody on like the V-Strom that you were talking about towards the beginning of the episode or something like that. It's
Hmm.
significantly more difficult.
Yeah, for sure. And then on top of that, we're gonna load those bikes up with some camping gear and actually camp overnight out on that loop.
Oh, that's
So
sweet. I love moto camping.
yeah, and you got my interest peaked because I was debating on where to set the camping up at. I have several options, but actually camping right on the Canaan loop might be a good option. I think that would be pretty awesome. And end of
So
the day on half a loop and then start the next day on the other half a loop. That would be super interesting.
yeah, so there's two or three sites out on the very wooded section of
Hmm.
Canaan Loop that you could definitely pull many bikes into.
Yeah.
Also on the gravel side, like if you're going from Blackwater Falls State Park back
Hmm.
towards the main road, on the gravel
Yeah.
side, there's a lot of dispersed camping areas on that, gravel offshoot
Yeah, I
out
saw a
there.
bunch over there. That was one of my options I had in mind, but I wasn't thinking about doing it actually on the hard part of the loop, which would be fun, I think.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think we have there's 8 riders and then me and my buddy Marsh as the coaches, and he's gonna sweep for me when we do the tour. So there's only 10 of us. It's not like a huge group. So that might be a good option now that we're talking about it a little bit. So nice. So the other thing I wanted to talk about with you is that we've mentioned James a few times, and we did mention the Tallboys and Trackmasters podcast. So you're used to this, but you're probably less used to somebody asking you the questions. You're always the guys that are sitting there talking. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the Tallboys and Trackmasters podcast? Kind of how it came to be, what you like about it, what the genesis is, what your side of the story is on this kind of a thing.
Yeah, so Tallboys and Trackmasters, at this point, I don't even remember what year we started it. It was maybe 2022, somewhere around in there. I feels like so much has happened the last couple of years. I can't exactly pinpoint it. Anyway, Tallboys and Trackmasters was initially a way to beat the winter blues. And it kind of started out as just a way to reach out to the people that were in FDSR.
Mm-hmm.
You gain a bunch of knowledge about a hobby or something specific, and the tendency is to kind of want to spread that out to people. So initially, our
Sure.
episodes were really geared towards like, must-have bike modifications for the hard or enduro side of dual sport riding,
Mm-hmm.
or we did one on trail tools, bike maintenance, stuff like that, like your common topics. And
Yeah.
then it just kept going. And then we interviewed one guy and then another guy. We've interviewed some really interesting people
Yeah.
over the years. I had several chances actually, to go to the Adventure Travel Day at our state capitol.
Yeah.
Um, so that's been pretty interesting. But yeah, it's something that was extremely grassroots with no real intention, at least on my side, of it really um, I wasn't worried if it took off or not. I just thought it'd be something cool to do. And I think in
Yeah.
this day and age when so many people obsess over monetizing their hobbies, that it was just a really cool way to get into, the little podcast thing or whatever, but
Yeah.
without like worrying if there was going to be a payoff, because like for me, just doing it with some form of payoff. You
Yeah.
know,
For sure.
I've
Yeah.
I've got a lot of enjoyment out of them, and James has too. And like
Yeah.
I said, we recently passed episode 100. So you reach a point where you can only talk about so many like hot topics for bikes, be it maintenance,
hmm
tires, tubes versus mooses, etc.
Yeah.
So in the last year or so, it's really kind of grown more into a community focused podcast. We like to try to get people on there to interview that are like interesting people in the hobby, guys like you that also put on events,
Yeah.
things of that nature. We've used it to talk about land rights issues, which is a big deal, probably whatever state you're in.
Yeah. For
And
sure.
but yeah, as far as the future goes, we just hope to continue making episodes. We got to a point earlier this year, we were at the Outdoor Adventure Travel Day, that there's a couple guys that want us to come check their loops out and
Yeah.
things of that nature. So that's cool to be, I guess, recognized as somebody who might know a thing or two about, as a loop hard, is it easy, things
Yeah.
like that. So, but what's crazy to me is like if I could go back to 2019, like spring 2019, it's like
Yeah.
when I'm going to buy that T-dub, it's like, hey, this is what your life's going to look like, years down the
Uh,
road. I wouldn't have believed it. I never dreamed that this hobby would become such a big part of my life. Pretty good chance if I hadn't found FDSR, I would have gotten tired of riding around by myself. But
yeah. For
uh,
sure.
but yeah, this Tallboys and Trackmasters podcast thing has been a wild ride, and like I said, I'm thankful for it to have just been something that was really natural.
Yeah.
It wasn't a, hey, I want to build this up to quit my job thing. It was just like an extension of the hobby that we could do over winter, and try to kick the winter blues and all that, and try to stay in touch with our buddies to some extent.
Yeah.
So
It's a super fun thing to do, to like the fact that if it's just a show with you and James, it's like you and your buddy just sitting there bullshitting. And then when
yeah,
you get to have a host on or a guest on there, like you get to learn about him, you get to interact. Like that's been the fun part with me doing the podcast, is being able to chat with people for an hour, hour and a half that maybe I wouldn't have the opportunity to. And that's been like a really fun part of it too. The other thing I wanted to mention about your podcast that I don't know that we said it yet was that you guys actually shoot that thing live. And it's like when I was on it, it's like you're on like Carson late night show. Like you have like segments, things pop up, you're interviewing people, then you got stuff at the end. Like it was such a fun experience. And the fact that it was live was a little intimidating for me as a guest. But the fact that you guys had been doing it for so long and you were just boom, 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 like keyed in, like it made me feel more comfortable and relaxed. Like I thought that was the most interesting thing about it to me when I first found out about it and started watching it was, holy shit, these guys are doing this live. Like that is crazy.
we've done it live consistently for the most part.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is just getting some engagement in the comments, as we're doing the
Yeah.
show. And
Uh-huh.
you know, guys, especially anytime you start talking tech, like tire setups, the comments are always going off. So that's cool. But yeah, doing like pre-recorded shows or something like that for me feels different, because I mean, we've done almost 100 episodes
Yeah.
probably of live shows. We've had some stuff pre-recorded, but
Yeah. Yeah.
not very much. The vast majority's all been live. But James handles pretty much all of the stuff in the background with StreamYard. So
Yeah.
the segments, the visuals, all that stuff, he's responsible for and does a great job with. It's it's exciting. It's cool to have something that, you and your buddy made.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about how it stacks up to like, the best moto podcast out there or anything like that. I'm just thankful to be a part of something like that. It's just been a cool experience.
Yeah, that's great, man. It's super fun to watch for sure. And that's the reward, just like we're saying, like all of these things sprung out of this two-wheeled motorcycle that's rides through the woods. Like everything builds upon that, and it's just such a great community to be involved with. And we're getting to the end here, but before we jump off, we talked about it right at the beginning of this Tallboys and Trackmasters thing. You mentioned Adventure Day down at the West Virginia State Capitol, and that you guys have done that now a couple years, where you've actually gone down, been a part of it, done some shows there. Like, why don't you? I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that thing, a bit about what it is and the experience that you had with it, for sure.
The Outdoor and Adventure Travel Day takes place at our state capitol in February of every year. It is a way for the both two-wheeled and four-wheeled, and when I say four-wheeled, I mean anything from side-by-sides to overlanders,
Uh-huh.
to have a presence in our state capitol.
Yeah.
So we're posted up pretty much just outside of the chamber within the state capitol. There's everybody from adventure tours to overland groups. There's guys that have raced King of Hammers there, which is one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
I really nerd out about like race buggies, suspension, stuff like that. But then there's FDSR and Tallboys and Trackmasters down there. But this
Yeah.
year we actually have now on state record the name Tallboys and Trackmasters being said within the actual house chambers or whatever of our state capitol. So that was
Nice.
that was pretty crazy of an
That's awesome.
experience. But that was as a result of Senator Mark Maynard. He's big into the off-road travel, and he's been really instrumental in keeping that Outdoor Adventure Travel Day going. A big point that we try to drive home is the economic impact that outdoor, like off-road travel, has in our state. There's like down at the Hatfield McCoy trails in West Virginia, there's an entire localized economy around that system of off-road trails.
Yeah.
You get a group of guys together, like for the 304 Detour, everybody's stopping for gas, stopping for food, get a pepperoni roll, grab a Gatorade. There's an economic impact to that. You get a
Yeah.
group of, overlanders or whatever that are trying to take a tour through the state from park to park or whatever. There's an economic impact. To have a state that has as much natural beauty as West Virginia, it only makes sense to lean into the like adventure and like off-road travel aspects of what the state can offer.
Right.
So, yeah, I think the event down to the Capitol gives us a pretty good platform to try to showcase some of that.
Yeah, for sure. And that is super cool that Tallboys and Trackmasters is in the public record, man. That's something right there, dude.
It's pretty wild to me. So, of all things.
Yeah. All right, Trevor, man. Well, it was super awesome to sit down and talk to you for a while. Get to know you a little bit better. We've chatted off and on here and there. We've run into each other at different events, but getting a chance to sit down and actually talk to you for a good hour and a half without, the things buzzing around us and people asking us questions has been great. So I really appreciate you coming on. Looking forward to seeing you at the Fool's Ride and 304 Detour and probably somewhere else out there, man.
Yeah, really appreciate you having me on. I had a great time. This is, I think, the first time that anybody's interviewed me specifically, so that's been interesting. But yeah, man, I'm excited to see you out on the trails throughout this year.